I'm excited to be back after what I think was a well-deserved bye week. An opportunity again for us to, take the load off a bit, allow our guys to go home if it was an opportunity that had presented itself for them on Thanksgiving, and a chance to, jumpstart on, the two potential opponents, which became clearly Tennessee Martin as we went out and practiced on Saturday. So really looking forward to this opportunity come this Saturday to be back in Bobcat Stadium and continue that mindset of one at a time. Lots made of being the top seed, but nothing's guaranteed except this one game in front of us. And was really impressed with what Tennessee Martin was able to do on Saturday, going on the road to New Hampshire and beating a seeded team at their place and really handling them in all forms. Offensively, really dominant performance for them, and they're capable through the air, on the ground. Led by their quarterback, big, tall quarterback who, I think is showing us a couple different things. He's certainly capable of making all the throws, but then his ability to extend plays, make runs, be a factor in the running game, as he was on Saturday, is definitely there as well. In Smith, they have a running back that's over 1,000 yards and really talented. And he's their main guy for sure, and a guy again that's capable of making all the different types of runs. So the run game is suited for him. And then on the other end of a lot of those passes, I think it's Rucker and Tanksley, I think is right, number 1 and number 4. They're combined right now for 100 catches and 700 yards a piece for both of them. So two weapons there in particular. They like to use their tight ends. I know one of them went down on Saturday, but offensively, a pretty balanced outfit that can do it a lot of different ways. And again, that starts with their quarterback, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention their offensive line. I think is particularly strong as well. Defensively, I know the number that jumps out immediately is they're giving up less than 85 yards on the ground per game, and anytime you do that over the course of a 13-game season, that is going to jump out at you. That's a mark of consistency. That's a mark of eliminating that facet of another team's offense week in, week out. And then I think they take the ball away well. I think 19 interceptions jumps out at you. They get after the quarterback. They're really big. They play a bunch of guys in their 3-man front. And I would think those guys, the 6 of them or whatever they play, 5 or 6 of them average 300 pounds. So that's a big front, plus the guys going in are big. Their linebackers are very active. I think top 2 of their top 3 tacklers and their 2 starting inside linebackers. So been very impressed with their defense. I think their 3-man front is similar to some of the fronts we've seen, probably most similar to Davis, going back a couple weeks into our schedule. For us, I think the saving grace is we've had a chance to go against some odd fronts through the course of the season. They're all a little bit different. The nature of theirs being a size-oriented front will certainly be a challenge for us to contend with again. Or our rushing numbers and their yards given up is certainly going to be a critical piece to how this game is decided. And certainly on the turnover side, we've done a pretty good job of protecting the football over the course of the season. They've obviously taken it away, and you get in playoff time, the turnover margin is critical as well. So excited about this opportunity that's in front of us, and anxious to get back, in Bobcat Stadium and really have a playoff crowd. One thing that stood out to me in the 3 previous years, we've had an opportunity to host playoff games. The playoff crowd brings us something a little bit different, and we certainly need that come Saturday. So with that, I'll open it up.
Anything else besides that 3-man front that they do especially well to stop the run?
Well, I think beyond the size component and the inability to move them, I think they do a good job of picking and choosing their times to move, and it's calculated on their end. And so I think some of the teams that we've played, that's been their MO to move quite a bit. Some have just from time to time hunker down, but movement combined with size is challenging. And then I think they're willing to take their chances with packing it up in there too at times. So anytime you want to bring your safeties down and they become part of the numbers game, you're going to have an advantage there defensively.
And the 21 game, how much have you been thinking about that one? And Thomas started, of course, the win. Is anything else that kind of you're taking from that into this one?
Well, same head coach, so there's similarities certainly. They've had staff changes and personnel changes for sure, but I think one thing you understand quickly is that their head coach, a bunch of their players have been here, and what does that mean? I think there's just a familiarity on their end that will be there. I don't think it's any crazy advantage one way or the other, but it's a little bit different than someone coming here fresh and not having had been in our environment. So I think it's far removed. I think we're quite a bit different than we were that Saturday. You mentioned that was Tommy's first start offensively. We were pretty limited that day. I think defensively, there's some things that are different. I know. Their quarterback at the time didn't play that day, so they were even different offensively than they had been that season. And I think their offense has taken on its own form this year. So some things, but ultimately it's probably far enough in the past. It's not that big a deal.
Justice listed back on the depth chart for the first time this season. Julie is not listed. Just an injury update.
Yeah, Justice really was probably by the time we played against Montana was in that mode to be the backup. Went out there and played the last couple plays. It was good to get him in there at the very least for that. So his progress, I think, is, again, put him in a position where he'd be a viable guy out there. And I think as the days go on, his practices go on, I think what that means is a little bit more each day. So, and then Julius, let's call it not out from a surgical perspective by any means. Given the timing of where we're at in the season, he's out for this week. It's the only game we have guaranteed. I'll say that much. And it's he's working hard, and it's our hope that we can get him back out there at some point.
You mentioned just the Martin offense did get in form since that 21 game. Anything that they do particularly well, whether it was against New Hampshire.
Well, I think they can run it and they can throw it. And that's evidence just looking at their numbers. But I think their passing game, in particular, the downfield piece to it, the big play opportunities, I think is something that jumps out. And I think the thing on Saturday was they were able to be really physical with New Hampshire, and they were able to stay on the field and really dictate the tempo of the game. The plays in the first half were so lopsided. So it was a real dominant performance, and it was both sides of the ball. I mean, their offense stayed on the field, their defense got off the field, but now the physicality that they showed, and then anytime you can match a physical run game with a play action game, there's something there. And then their ability to get on the perimeter was part of it too. The number of just even quarterback power reads they ran in that game, and he kept some, he gave some. Was something that I think stood out. So they did it in a lot of different ways on Saturday, and I think that's reflective of what they're capable of. Not necessarily every game has been quite as productive for them, but you look how they found a way to win that last game to put themselves in a position against Lindenwood, to build off of that and have that kind of performance. They seem like they're hitting their stride.
And your guys' kicking game, I guess Miles, when he was a walk-on to now, I guess how have you kind of seen him grow?
Yeah, I'd say significantly. Miles was a high school soccer player and basketball player who happened to kick a little bit. He chose to come to Montana State to come here to go to school. And, we opened the door for an opportunity to walk on his first spring. And you could see there was potential there. What I know Miles being his uncle is that, he's a really competitive guy, and he's athletic, and his moments in high school, weren't on the football field. They were on the basketball court. They were on the soccer pitch, is that what it would be called? The kicking piece was just starting to happen for him, and I think each semester he got a little bit better to the point, really this fall for the first time. He was really hurt most of the last spring, so maybe it would have happened a little bit sooner, but he was able to find a different level of consistency that he hadn't. And that's really what that position's about. It's about being able to go out there and be repeatable time after time. And thinking about the volume of kicks he's kicked in games, it really doesn't even matter the distance to me so much. Is he's probably only mishit a couple balls all year, and that's something that looking at last year, misses are one thing, but mishit balls, I mean, that's a more concerning thing. So for him to get to that point where, okay, he'd shown a level of consistency that ultimately, coupled with an injury that Casey got in fall camp, we go out there and kick with Miles at New Mexico, really not knowing exactly where it would go. But he goes out there and was 5 for 5, I think, that day. And it's by and large, it's built upon that. And I know his confidence has grown, and certainly ours has in him. So, he's filled a void from a consistency perspective that we didn't have last year, and we'll continue to need as these games get bigger and bigger. So, very pleased with what he's been able to do, and I don't know if I would have saw this coming when he chose to come to Montana State a few years back.
I guess the consistency point, him being able to go out there and hit 49-yarder characteristics, how does that affect maybe some of your fourth down decision making and just relying on him?
Yeah, I think lining up for that one, lining up for, I think, in the deep one against Idaho early in that game, early in the Idaho State game, before the half against Davis, in that 40 to 50 range, as long as the conditions have yielded it, really the second half of the season, I felt pretty good about that. And it doesn't mean they're all going to go in, but that was a big kick before the half to hit that 49 yards, his longest to this point. But it was maybe just as much what he did at Davis, even though he came up a few inches short, that allowed us to continue to move forward with that type of opportunity. So, I think in that part of the field, we've chosen to be more aggressive, period. And that is a little bit independent of our kicking situation. Just I think our offense has the ability to convert, in those scenarios, create the 4-down kind of territory on a football field, and I think that's been as big a part of it as anything. Just going into this year, saying we're going to be more aggressive in that part of the field, from the 35 to let's call it the 45, and the fact that we, our last 2 times out have gotten position before the half with all we had left to give it a shot. We made one and we came up a couple inches short. That's a lot different place than we were at this point last year, for sure.
The sole touchdown UT Martin gave up on Saturday was off a kickoff return. Just curious, how do you think that's going to play into this Saturday and that part of special teams?
Yeah, I think the games get bigger. Special teams, those big plays are so pivotal, and we got to be on the right side of them. So, I guess the fact that they gave up a return, I suppose, is an opportunity for us to make a difference there. Our return game has been heavily tilted towards the punt side of things. We haven't maybe cracked it on the kick side. I know the one Ontario got, the last one that we got against Montana, that was a glimpse of maybe what he can do. So so much about the kick return side of things is opportunity. We haven't had a ton of opportunity, so if we get an opportunity on Saturday, we hopefully make the most of it. Certainly you flip that around, our ability to continue to cover like we have, to really go 12 games and not have a significant return against us in any way, shape, or form, it's a pretty good place to be. But that's in the rear view now. We got to figure out how to continue to do that and find ways to really limit the return side of things. So absolutely, to your point, I think special teams can and will play a factor this Saturday, and we need to be on the right side of that.
Yeah, you mentioned UT Martin's run defense and under 100 yards per game. Does it give you confidence though that you've played a couple other teams with a statistic like that and then were able to run so well against them, like think back to Idaho?
Yeah, I think what does that mean over 13 games for them now? I think you certainly have to dissect what that looks like. What have been some of those scores? What have been the opponent's willingness to stay with the run game? what has the opponent's mindset been going into a game. And also understand one way or another we have to establish ourselves on the run side of things. So yes, I think teams like Idaho, teams like UC Davis, Montana that have had strong run games, and we found a way to run the ball in those games. Maybe, like Davis, we didn't run it like crazy, but we ran it enough. That has to be a piece of it. And if they're doing things, if it's a pure numbers situation that's taking the run game away, we have to find ways to make plays in the passing game. I think as we head into the playoffs here, and this is what we have as UT Martin, we are going to have to make plays in the passing game. It can't be all about us, solely counting on the run game. The weather looks fine on Saturday, so there might be a scenario that's unlike Saturday at some point down the road if we're fortunate enough. But Saturday looks good, so we got to take advantage of it in every which way. And but they have been able to stop it pretty consistently, maybe with the exception of K-State. And we're gonna have to figure out how to at least gain some yards on that side of it.
I'm working on a story about Marcus, and I was going back to 21 and that kind of pivot point for him. What do you remember most about him, kind of that season, and then right after the season when you sat down with him and asked him to switch, or asked if you wanted to switch to offensive line?
Yeah, well, what I remember of Marcus first, he had shoulder surgery the winter right before I got the job. I don't know the timing; maybe it was in the fall, but he was still recovering from that. So that first spring, and here's a young guy that was in his fourth semester, second spring, but really didn't have an opportunity to make his mark. We switched the defense, so there was a place for him on the interior side of things to that he fit based on his size and skill set. But I think as we went through that first fall, he was still on the outside looking in, but I think there was enough to look at it, just his frame in general, to say, boy, if we could put some more weight on him with his strength levels where they were, we might really have something on the offensive side of things. And typically those conversations are more challenging than his was. It was right away when we got back for that second semester of January in 22, brought him in and say, hey, here's what we're thinking. And I think he'd played both sides at Billings Central. I think his favorite player is David Bakhtiari. Bakhtiari, however you say his last name, who has a favorite player that's an offensive lineman, Marcus Weirded. So I think he gravitated towards the switch immediately, and maybe because he saw it in himself, maybe because he saw it as an opportunity to get on the field faster. Maybe it was just, hey, this is what the coach asked me to do. A combination of all those things. So he took to it right away with the weight gain. I know a lot was made of that really January through probably July of that year. And by the time we got to the fall, it was pretty clear that not that we'd made the right move, but we really had a fantastic player as a sophomore. And he's mean and ornery, so that plays on both sides of the ball. But I think his understanding of angles and pad level, and just he's really he's as smart of offensive lineman that I've been around, as far as just getting it, getting the scheme, getting where he fits into it. And he's obviously played a couple different spots for us. So yeah, we made the right move, but and so much of it was that he just immediately went forward with it. He didn't fight it at all, and we're real thankful for that.
He obviously was good right away that season, but to see where he is now, anything that's really stood out about where he's grown just in the 3 seasons as an offensive lineman?
Well, I think it was interesting last year. He played guard in the playoff game against NDSU, and here's an example of his growth just in maturity. And he came when we met in January, and an opportunity to meet with all the players. And he said, "I'll play wherever, but if I'm going to play guard, I need to practice guard. I need to understand just the differences between lining up that spot versus tackle, the different things I've been asked to do." And lo and behold, he's played just guard for us this year, the way it's worked out. So I think his continued growth and embracing that position, embracing all that goes into it, has set himself up where, I would argue he's the best offensive linemen in our league and likely in the country. And what does that mean for him beyond Montana State? There's definitely going to be opportunity for him to continue to play. So, he's I can't say enough good things about all the things that he's done, and certainly a bunch of it's in the weight room, but a bunch of it's just continuing to grow as a complete offensive lineman and what all that means. That he's gone, I think, to lengths that a lot of guys that I've been around haven't.
Coulter, do you have anything?
Yeah, hey coach, can you hear me okay?
Gotcha, yeah.
First of all, I just wanted to ask you this about how you feel about the cumulative mindset of the team. I know that's something we've talked about all year, but now that it is sort of a one and done scenario, how much do you feel that within them, and how much confidence do you see within them?
Yeah, I think because of how we've went about our business each week, I think we can continue to live that way and understand that the biggest difference now is going 1-0 is the only catalyst to continuing this thing on. And what do we have to do to live in that mode? Yes, being the top seed was something that we desired to be, but it doesn't guarantee us anything. Someone filling out the bracket and doing whatever they think doesn't mean anything. We have to go out and play as hard as we can, be as sharp as we can against a really good Tennessee Martin team on Saturday, and that's all that matters. So I think the maturity that comes out of our senior group, I think is critical. I do think, the experience of last year and how abrupt that was, and I'm certain the thoughts that this senior group in particular had, after that game, and we're not going to let that happen to us again, meaning, let that thing slip, from our grasp. I think we all felt this time last year. So, we've lived in this world all year, and I don't think there's any reason we can't continue to do it, but we need to go out and prove that.
The fact that Tennessee Martin had probably the most resounding win of the first round, I mean, the most decisive, does that help to get their attention, or what do you think of just the way that they won on Saturday?
I know it was impressive. Yeah, I think any team that makes it to the final 16 would have our attention. But there's a team that won on the road. Beat a seeded team, and I mean, however, let's say 15-24, that thing played out. It played out. That's the way it was set up, and I think as we watched film last week, I think we felt like Tennessee Martin would go win that game. Now, the resounding fashion that they did on the road, yeah, I think it definitely has our eyes open, and the fact that they did it, certainly on both sides of the ball. It wasn't a matter of them having to outlast something and outscore a team or keep a team down. They clearly dominated that game really from the onset, with the exception of that kick return. So they definitely have our attention.
That league has made a lot of progress. I mean, 3 teams from that league in the playoffs this year. I know SEMO was good. I know they lost on Saturday, but they were good. Tennessee State good. So what do you think of just sort of the progress that league has made and sort of where they've been in the FCS?
Yeah, it's become a more competitive league. So my takeaway is that more teams have made an investment, maybe got the right coach in there. It's how leagues go from year to year is reflective of an investment made. It's certainly, I go back 10 years ago where the CAA with the Southland, with I don't know, whatever the conference, the Southern Conference, I think that was Georgia Southern and App State. I mean, obviously, those 3 conferences that were stronger conferences have had a lot of teams leave. So that I guess there's been opportunity for a league like the OVC, Big South combination to rise up and fill that void. I know our conference has continued, I think, to improve its level of play. The Missouri Valley's continued to be strong, but I think just the general landscape. I mean, the OVC is obviously taking that opportunity that was maybe presented with, some of those other leagues not being as strong as they were, 10 years ago, if not even 5.
And the Tennessee Martin quarterback, you mentioned him, but it seemed to me he can move the pocket, but he can also reset the pocket. Some of those deep throws, he kind of slid the pocket over, then he would reset and then throw it out on the field. So how challenging is that element for your defense?
Yeah, I think to make that hard for him to be able to, there's designed dash plays to get him out, half rolls to have him set up and throw back. Anything we can to disrupt those opportunities on those called out of pocket plays is one thing, but it's keeping him corralled and in the pure drop back, because he does have a big arm. So and the longer those plays are extended, the harder it is to cover downfield. And certainly he's got good receivers on the other end and tight ends that can find ways to get open. So making him uncomfortable, that's been our beyond stopping the run, that's our primary objective each week. So whatever we can do, and he's a big, strong guy, and he can run a little bit too. So, he is definitely, definitely, as far as how do you stop Tennessee Martin, you better make it hard for him. I think that's clear. The more film you watch, because he's capable of doing quite a bit, and they've got guys on the other side of it, receivers in particular, that are really capable as well.
Offensively, do they remind you of anybody in the Big Sky Conference?
Oh, not necessarily. I think their balance. I think there's a bunch of teams in our league that are attempting to achieve their balance, have a good back, have a couple good receivers. I think he's a little bit different quarterback, so that's where I would differentiate them. I think the attempt at balance and the types of runs, certainly match up with several of the teams we've played in our league. But his skill set, I think, that would be the challenging. I don't think I would exactly compare him to one quarterback in our league, and that doesn't mean he's better or whatever, but I just don't think he exactly compares. But you got to defend it all. I think that's the thing. You got to defend the width of the field with the speed in their run game, their read game, and then when they have a running back like they do, and the receivers that they do, I think they can certainly stretch it vertically as well.
Varying fronts that you guys have faced offensively against defensive fronts, having an offensive line like you guys have, both skill and experience-wise, how much does that help you when you do face sort of a variety of different defenses?
Yeah, I think it really helps. And you look at the back half of our conference schedule, in particular between Eastern Washington, UC Davis, and Montana. I think what Martin presents is kind of this combination of maybe all three of those. And I think all three of those at times, gave our run game some challenges. There's no question about it. I think the size component of what they bring to the table is most represented by more that combination between Eastern and UC Davis. So our guys, their ability to know each and every week, priority one for that other team's defense is to limit our run game. And we might see some things that we haven't seen on film. Now that we have 12 games under our belt, we probably still haven't seen quite everything, but we've seen quite a bit, and we've seen a variety of different defensive linemen in particular, in the movements that they can create. So I think our guys, yes, their experience in dealing with that, I think their collective intelligence, I think their ability to communicate with one another. And then I think our offensive coaches, Coach Johnson, Coach Walker in particular, being able to, formulate the best way to attack any one of these fronts, and then have some answers as the game goes along is a critical opponent or component to us having success.
Last one for me. You've been a part of staffs that have been on teams that have gone to national championship runs. So how do you sort of channel that this week, and how much does this team sort of remind you of some of the teams that have had similar sort of lofty aspirations?
Well, I think you have to have a team that can play December football, meaning, you throw the conditions out the window. Now, again, we're going to have good conditions on Saturday, but you can run it, and hopefully you can stop it. I think that's definitely where championship football starts. You have a team that believes in in one another and really truly wants to play for one another. I think we have that, and the teams that I've been around have had that as well. And then you got to have a bunch of guys that the moment isn't too big for. And fortunately for us, a good chunk of our guys have been in some moments, whether it's been this year or some of them going all the way back to 21. So there's something to experience. There's something to knowing that, next play is the most important play. And I think these guys embody that. And it'll have to play out, though. Just because I'm standing up here saying I think we have some of the elements doesn't mean we're guaranteed anything. But I definitely think we do, relative to our ability to be physical first and foremost, and then just our guys' belief in one another and their willingness to play for one another.
I guess, how was the last couple of weeks for you and the bye week for Thanksgiving week?
In the conference season, obviously important. We had a couple pivotal games there to close out the season. Schedule's going to be tough there. We knew that going into the year, and I was just proud of the guys being able to, fight week in and week out and not let themselves get too high or too low and just keep rolling all the way through it all. And obviously we earned the bye week. That was great. Guys got to, relax a little bit. We saw the practices, but guys got to kind of heal up a little bit for this playoff run.
I mean, to get your second CAC win, to secure home field advantage, the number 1 seed, and that bye, just how special was that whole week for you, that whole weekend?
Yep, absolutely. No, it was huge for sure. I think this program has goals we focus on all year, and at the top of it, it's always to get that home field advantage. Well, not the pinnacle, but what we can control so far is home field advantage, and ultimately we did that with this last game, and so that's huge for this program. Going in as a number 1 seed, it's really unprecedented for a Montana State team, and so we're grateful for the opportunity and we're excited for it.
You also earned Offensive Player of the Year for the conference last week, so I guess just that accolade, what it means to you?
Yeah, no, it's certainly a privilege. It's an honor. It's something that when I originally got here, I never would have imagined it would even be a possibility. And so it's certainly an honor. I'm very blessed to have that opportunity to be named that. But I think I also like to obviously pay credit where it's due, and I think that kind of shows what we have going on as a program from top down. Our coaching staff, our strength staff, giving me the opportunities, putting me in the right situations, and getting me conditioned to be the right way to be able to compete, and then the rest of the players making plays for me. So.
Yeah, the 3 Player of the Year guys from here in the conference, along with 10 of the 17 all-conference guys from this team, are from Montana. So what does that say about you guys keeping the best in-state talent here at Montana State?
Yep, absolutely. No, I think the in-state players are certainly pivotal for this program. I think that's what we're built on. You see the numbers in our program already, and it's a high proportion of our team, and so it's super important for us, and it's just. I mean, as a Montana kid, why would you not want to come to Montana State, right? This program is just growing. We're building. We're getting better. We got all of our stuff coming in with the BAC. We got our indoor facility coming in. We have a program that's, won a vast majority of their games the past few years, and it's just a great program culturally. So, obviously, if you're a kid in Montana, you certainly want to come to Montana State.
I guess speaking of that, 17 all-conference selections, Coach Vigen getting Coach of the Year. I guess you and your team are just getting that recognition. I guess what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've alluded to it a few times for sure, but it's just we're part of a program where you're expected to win week in and week out, and so certainly we ultimately did that the entire season. And so the rest of the conference wants to reward us for that because the guys in all the different programs, they realize how difficult of a task that is. Again, to be consistent and to show up every single week and not lay flat once is something that I'll definitely be grateful for in this team, and it just shows a lot about our character. So I think it's certainly a blessing that the rest of the coaches saw that as well, and certainly gave credit to the individuals on our team.
Justice, I know he's not 100% back. Just him getting back in the fold and getting the final snap in the I guess what does that mean, just bringing him back into the fold over the last few weeks?
Yeah, just his progression this entire season has been very impressive to watch. I mean, obviously he's not out here getting a lot of reps, but I get to see that guy day in and day out really just working his butt off to try to get an opportunity wherever it might come as a senior. I think it could have been very easy for him to be discouraged and really to possibly just lay flat and just say, shoot, like I lost my senior season, I can't do anything about it, and I'm just going to sit here. But he's been working as hard as he can to try to get back, and ultimately to have him go out there for the last drive was an emotional time. I think it just meant a lot to all of us as a program. We know how much he cares about this program, how much he's given to this program as a captain, as a kid from Bozeman. So to him be out there, to secure the win on those last couple plays was very special.
How would you say your relationship, friendship's kind of grown over the last several years?
Yeah, no, I mean, he's a kid from Bozeman, so I was a rival with him growing up, and so when I first got here, it was always a little bit iffy here and there because he's a kid from Bozeman. That's just how it is with Butte and Bozeman. But he had a good relationship with my high school coach. I remember they'd always kind of give each other some grief here and there, and I think he's a pretty outgoing guy, so he caught my attention early, and I just it's grown a tremendous amount. I think he's one of my best friends now, and certainly that's just kind of how it rolls. You're a rival in high school, and you think these guys are doing it the wrong way, but at the end of the day, they're just like you, and that's why you hate them, because they're competing against you. But no, I love that guy, and very proud of the man he is, and ultimately and also as a player he is.
Switching gears to this weekend, you guys are going to take on UT Martin. I believe that was your first career start back a few years ago. So can you kind of reflect on that moment and the full circle this weekend will be?
Yeah, it'll be great to obviously see a familiar opponent for the playoff game. We know a little bit about him for sure, but then ultimately, yeah, just referring back to my freshman year, getting that first start. The Star Wars, I really, it's hard to put into words. That first start for really any player, and specifically in the playoffs, that was, everything was just moving really fast for me. So I think ultimately I'm excited to compete against them again. I think they have a lot of great players, a lot of great athletes. They have a great scheme going with their defense I've been able to watch so far. And so I'm excited to, kind of get a second shot at them as well. I think we have a lot, I think that first game back in 21 was, no one really gave us much of a shot because of how we performed then. So I think we still have a chip on our shoulder, and we're excited to have these guys come to Bozeman and to get after them for sure.
That game, obviously the wind was such a factor, and then they had that scoop and score. So how much, did you kind of take those moments, and how much that helped you kind of later in the playoffs?
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, like I said, that first start, it's hard to put into words. The emotions, and just your ability to accept it and to push through and perform despite all the stresses that you perceive are around you. So that was it was a tough game for me for sure, and certainly the wind made it almost unbearable to some extent. 40-mile-per-hour winds, you really couldn't throw the ball at all. So but yeah, it's just how everything is. You take it for what it was, and you learn from it, and you grow from it, and ultimately 4 years later get another opportunity with them. So.
And then your passing ability obviously flashed in that playoffs. But what do you think you've improved the most from a passing ability that's been able to shine through this season?
I think ultimately we just have. I think we've obviously always had guys, but I think we certainly have a group of guys in the wide receiver room that have made a lot of plays for me. And I think that we've had a great scheme to be able to get those guys in open positions as well. Our offense has adapted a little bit, from the past 3 years to this year. So it's been, just been in good situations where teams don't really expect things, and we obviously get an advantage and with just kind of game planning. So I think ultimately there's a lot of that stuff, but there's a lot of work that I put in for it. I don't think it's, there was never a quarterback coach growing up. There was never anything like that, and so I think. I've had to work really hard to try to improve my passing ability, and I think, I'm trying to continue to get better as we grow into these playoffs.
What kind of work did you specifically, I guess, have you done the most?
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of, it's all around, really. There's the mental ability where you have to understand what's going on with protections for one, so you know that you're obviously have guys blocked up the right way, but then it's knowing the combinations, knowing all the coverages. And then it's obviously your ability, your skill yourself. So yeah, it's footwork. It's understanding how your body moves and being able to position it so you can get the throw out the right way, so you can get the juice behind the ball. Yeah.
As one of the leaders for this team, everybody's gone for the bye week and the holiday and family and all that stuff. How do you kind of make sure that everybody's back focus and have their heads ready for this week?
Yeah, I just think it's pretty obvious that we have high aspirations, and this team has been about that this entire year, and so it's just continuing to do what we have done. I think that Big Sky is a great conference, and so I think we've been able to have really good work and good competition and good growth competing within the conference, and so I think that'll help us as we go ahead into these next games as well. So but yeah, it's just making sure we have a chip on our shoulder. We have more to play for than obviously just the regular season, because that's all over. None of that really matters. The 12-0 might help you get to your seeding, but other than that, nothing matters at this point at all. So none of the wins previous matter. So it's just win or go home, and that's what we're all about. So
One more on Justice. Just, is there anything on the field that he does at a particularly high level? Nice.
yeah, I mean, I think he's a guy that Monday through Friday, regardless of if he's playing, if he's has been hurt, if he's been trying to get back. He's a guy that really just brings up the team morale for one. Even if when he was a starter, I remember day in and day out, guys just love to get lined up and go inside run with that guy leading the helm. So that's something that's really special about him. That it's not really, you can't really put into numbers. But I think beyond that, he's a physical guy. I think that he plays relentlessly, and I think he's a super smart player. And so all those things ultimately are very special attributes of him.
Just walking by that trophy rock, seeing the trophy there now, what's that feeling like? And what was it like to carry it again for the last time?
Yeah, it's good to be home for sure. So, and again, I was just with that Thanksgiving. Trophy Rock sits, in the mountain range right outside of Butte. So as my drive back, I was finally able to look over there and to see it. The blue and gold sky. With the sun going down, it just kind of felt right with with Trophy Rock being back over here in Bozeman and with back in Butte, just remaining there. So it was kind of sentimental to me. I think that it ultimately lies here in Bozeman, and Butte, obviously kind of tilts it one way or the other. So it meant something to me to obviously bring it back over here.
Well, before Cat Grizz last time, you were saying how the Trophy Rock spot was empty and how you wanted it back. So now that it's occupied, what's that feeling like to walk by that every day?
Feels good, walk by there and touch the cat head and just think about all the work that I put into, and the rest of the seniors and everybody's put in to get it back here. It feels good to walk by that every day.
And that game, I mean, just can you take me through kind of the emotions? Obviously, I know you had to leave for a little bit, but to be able to come back and then to win it in that fashion too, how gratifying is that?
Yeah, it felt good. We came out and dominated in all three phases, like we were planning on trying to do all week, and our game plan we went out and executed it well, and I thought we had control of the entire game, and that's a pretty good feeling to know. I mean, when the snow came in, we were getting pumped up and we were excited to finish that game out, and you could kind of see them wilting a little bit, and so that's a good feeling to watch that, and the way it ended and pack that trophy around the field, there's nothing like that. So
I believe it was kind of like right after you went out with that injury, Kenny and Zach had that huge head-on fight. Were you able to watch that?
I was just walking off the field when that was pretty cool, to get that first sack of the game, and just being able to disrupt Fife all day. I mean, he was scrambling around, throwing some incomplete passes and stuff like that. So I think we got after him as a D-line pretty well, and yeah, that was a good feeling.
Yeah, you were also named Defensive Player of the Year in the conference last week, so kind of just, your thoughts on that and that accolade.
It's super cool. I didn't have the best year statistically, but for the coaches to come out with that and vote for me, it shows that I have some respect around the league, and I appreciate it, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I asked Tommy, 3 of the Player of the Years from this team and 10 of the 17 all-conference selections are Montana guys. So what kind of pride do you take in that and the best talent coming to Montana State?
It's just Montana guys working their way up. Coming here, a lot of them probably not on full scholarships, low scholarships, going through the program, obsessing over the process every single day, getting better every day, and when they get their chance, just the moment's not too big, going out there every single game and being prepared, because we put in the work, and this school means so much to us, and
So it's cool to see all the Montana guys and just everybody in general being on those lists.
I guess speaking of that, just getting 17 all conference, Vegan Coach of the Year, just kind of all those accolades for you and your teammates. I guess what does that mean?
It shows how much work we've put in over these last couple years. A lot of the guys, upperclassmen, and this off season, how big it was for us. And I mean, we won the conference, went 12-0, and you earn a few picks going that way. So I'm proud of the guys and excited.
Is it nice to see Danny on there?
Yeah, I was pretty excited. I gave him a big hug about it, and I said that's pretty dang impressive to only play however many games he played and have that respect around the league to still get on a team.
First initial thoughts on UT Martin. What have you guys done?
Athletic bunch, ran the ball well on New Hampshire. Their quarterback, he can get out in space and make some things happen. He broke a lot of tackles in that game. Yeah, just got some good athletes and make them come here play in the cold. And so.
What do you remember most from 2021 facing them?
To be honest, I don't remember a ton. I remember that it's kind of the same thing. Had a lot of good athletes. I remember they had a really athletic quarterback that we were worried about. Tommy, that was his first start, if I remember right, and went out there and handled our business. The defense played well. I think we only gave up a touchdown or something like that. So, yeah, try to do the same thing.
How much did the bye week help in kind of resetting to that one and done mentality?
I think the bye week gives us a chance to do some good on good. It gives us a chance for Thanksgiving, especially, see our family, relax a little bit, get our minds away from football for a day, and come back and be ready to go. We can't come out of bye week on a lull. I know that, and we've been stressing that. So, getting our bodies right and feeling healthy mentally and physically, and ready to go play our best football and keep getting better in December.
How do you, as one of the leaders, make sure that everybody's focused and ready to go for this week, considering everything's gone?
Just keep obsessing the process. We got a little extra time to study up on these guys, so we should be able to play fast and ready to go, and we're playing at home. So that's extra motivation to go out here in front of our crowd and play our best. So we're just keep going 1-0 every day, and we got to keep getting better. The best teams get better in December.
Is this a playoff year?
I don't know. I got that the thing in Vegas, the Campbell, next Tuesday. So I got to figure out what I'm gonna do with the beard. So we'll see.
What do you feel like you've improved on the most, or what is anything specifically that you feel like it's gotten better this year compared to previous years?
Just trying to be well-rounded in the run game and the pass game. Make sure they try to complement each other. Doing whatever I can to cut the edges off of things to make plays, be on plays. And I mean, I didn't have statistically the year I wanted to, but at the end of the day, the film speaks for itself, and I think the coaches around the conference saw that, I guess, and so.
Do you prefer to be kind of on the end, or do you like that stand-up kind of cowboy package that you've been doing?
I'm more comfortable just being in my normal spot. Just switch it up with the cowboy stuff. Cruz got the sack on that, so right when I went out, so I'm happy for him. But yeah, just get some misdirection stuff for the offense going, make them make some calls, maybe not be able to pass off things. That's kind of what that's for. But yeah, both spots. I like doing my normal thing. I'm good at that, and that's what I like to do, I guess.